To know if a ship has a hole in its hull, you have to go down to the engine room. That saying echoed in David Brooks' mind as he pushed open the door to Oakwood Diner, the first branch he had opened with his own hands and dreams. He wore a faded baseball cap, a worn-out jacket, his beard scruffy, looking no different from a wandering laborer seeking a cheap meal. The glass door creaked softly as he stepped inside. No one looked up. Perfect. He chose a seat near a secluded corner of the bar, a spot where he could observe the entire diner without being noticed. Memories flooded back like waves. This place had once been his entrepreneurial dream, where he washed dishes, cooked, served customers, and cleaned up. But now, after 15 years, he rarely set foot in any branch, too busy with meetings, shareholders, and expansion plans. Lately, a few things had unsettled him. The first branch's profits were dropping unusually despite stable sales. Staff turnover rates had spiked. Some vague reviews mentioned a toxic work culture. His gut told him something was wrong, and no report could reveal the truth better than seeing it with his own eyes. "What'll you have?" A young girl's voice rang out, not bothering to look up from the POS machine. "Coffee and toast," David replied, deliberately roughening his voice. While waiting, his gaze was drawn to a gaunt man with white hair, carefully wiping each plate as if it were crystal. The man wasn't rushed, wasn't lazy, and didn't let anyone clean up for him. He always bowed to customers as they left the diner, smiling even when other staff snapped at him. His shirt bore the name Sam. With just one glance, David knew this old man wasn't ordinary. There was something about Sam that made the whole kitchen warmer. And at that moment, another young cashier, blonde hair, chewing gum, whispered to her friend behind the counter, her eyes flicking toward Sam. That old man should have been in a nursing home ages ago. David tightened his grip around his coffee cup. He wasn't sure what was unfolding, but his gut told him this silent hero was about to become the heart of a story, one he hadn't even imagined yet. David noticed that in the 3 hours he sat there, Sam didn't take a single break. No eating, no drinking, just quietly washing dishes, wiping tables, collecting trash, and returning to the washing station. His wrinkled hands were red and raw from hot water and chemicals. Yet every time a customer glanced into the back kitchen, Sam would look up, smile, and nod in greeting, like a true receptionist. Another thing caught David's attention. Whenever a customer left with a hesitant expression, as if they couldn't afford a tip or had underpaid, Sam would quietly walk over to the cashier, pull a few small bills from his own wallet, hand them over with his usual line. They probably forgot their money. Then he'd return to his work as if nothing had happened. David began to sense something deeply off between the way Sam lived and how the younger staff around him behaved. The more he watched, the more he understood. Sam wasn't just a dishwasher. He was the unseen pillar holding up the diner's operations with his heart and silent sacrifices. But what tugged at David's heart the most was when he stepped outside after a phone call and saw Sam having lunch. A dry piece of bread and an old bottle of water sitting huddled by the side of an old truck parked behind the diner. No table, no chair, no one beside him. Just him, the old truck, and a small photo of a child taped to the window, whose face bore a striking resemblance to his own. David clenched his phone tightly. Sam was carrying an entire world that no one cared to notice. Noon at Oakwood Diner began to quiet down. Customers trickled out, the space settling after the lunch rush. Sam was still there, washing dishes, mopping the floor, wiping down the juicer as if time couldn't touch him. David was about to stand when a giggle from the cashier counter caught his attention. Jason, the shift leader, dressed in a neat uniform, his hair slicked back, leaned close to Chloe, the young cashier with bold lipstick and a sharp smile. They whispered, but their eyes kept darting towards Sam, laced with mockery and irritation. That old man should be at home watching cable, not turning this place into a nursing home, Jason whispered, fiddling with the loose change in the drawer. Chloe smirked. Right? Yesterday, he even paid for a young mom who couldn't afford her meal. What a superhero. With an empty wallet. Jason glanced around the diner, then shrugged. Convenient, though. If something's short, we can just blame him. Who'd believe a senile old dishwasher? David heard every word. His heartbeat slowed for a moment. This wasn't just petty gossip. This was the kind of talk that came with a plan. Jason and Chloe weren't just disrespecting Sam. They had motives. He watched how Jason handled customers, speaking sweetly, but his eyes lacked patience. Chloe kept accidentally forgetting to give receipts, quickly voiding transactions on the register without notice. Small actions, but David, with 15 years of business experience, recognized the signs of sophisticated fraud. Sam walked by with a new tub of dishes, giving a slight nod to the two. Jason didn't bother responding. Chloe flashed a fake smile. Careful there, Uncle Sam. Don't slip and sue us now, okay? Sam just nodded, saying nothing. But David heard and felt the deliberate coldness in that tone. In that moment, David understood. Sam wasn't just being looked down on, he was becoming the target of a calculated scheme. And if he didn't act soon, the only person still keeping humanity alive in this kitchen would be crushed by cruelty disguised as service smiles. The afternoon settled in, the sky outside the glass window tinged with the pale gray of early-season drizzle. The diner grew quiet as customers dwindled. Sam took a moment to change into a dry apron, wiping the sweat from his forehead before silently pulling an old phone from his pocket. David still hadn't left the diner. He watched discreetly from the corner of the counter. Sam was on a video call. The screen showed the radiant face of a boy, about 8 years old, lying in a hospital bed with a small IV tube attached to his wrist. "Grandpa, did you manage the restaurant today?" The boy's voice rang out, clear but slightly hoarse from his heart condition. Sam leaned back, revealing a patch of his uniform stained with dishwater, but quickly angled the phone upward, pointing toward the office at the back of the diner. "Of course! I just signed an order form, you know." David furrowed his brow. "Did you tell the staff not to argue? Mom says if you're the boss, you have to be fair," the boy said with an innocent laugh. Sam smiled back, his hoarse voice thick with emotion. "I'm always fair, don't worry." "Have you finished your porridge yet?" David felt his heart tighten. In the boy's eyes, Sam was a successful man, a real restaurant manager, upright and someone to be proud of. And perhaps that boy needed that image to keep fighting his illness. After ending the call, Sam sat still for a few seconds, his gaze lost in the void. He pulled a small photo from his pocket, the boy from the video, smiling, clutching a worn-out teddy bear. The faded writing on the back read, "To Grandpa, my hero." David stepped out toward the back of the diner, pretending to head for the restroom, but really he just wanted a clearer look at Sam's face in that moment. With no one around, Sam raised a hand to his eyes, touching them lightly. No sobs, no complaints. Just an aged gaze, heavy with a ton of love he was trying to hide. David knew. This old man wasn't lying for fame or gain. He lied to keep alive the faith of a child teetering on the edge of life and death. And that wasn't a lie. It was a gift wrapped in sacrifice. Late at night, Oakwood Diner was nearly empty. Only a few patrons lingered, sipping coffee and chatting softly. David remained seated quietly at the corner of the counter, an old newspaper spread out in front of him to conceal the phone silently recording. It wasn't by chance. After what he'd witnessed today, from Jason and Chloe's behavior to the touching story between Sam and his grandson, David knew he needed more than a gut feeling. He needed proof. And then, what he'd been waiting for arrived. Jason emerged from the kitchen, pouring himself a soda before leaning against the counter. Chloe was gathering receipts in the drawer, whispering, "Sam paid for a customer again today. Second time this week. Is he trying to turn this place into a charity?" Jason smirked. "Let him. It's actually better for us." "What do you mean?" Chloe lowered her voice. Jason glanced around, ensuring no one could hear, but David had already started recording. "If he keeps putting money in the register like that, it's easier to blame him for any shortages. No one would suspect someone like Sam of being dishonest. And that's his fatal weakness." Chloe nodded. "I'm sick of watching him wander around like some saint. Today I even heard a customer call him inspiring. Made me want to gag." Jason took a sip of soda, lowering his voice further. Patricia, the manager, is already stressed about last week's missing money. If it happens again, I'll accidentally mention seeing Sam near the cash register. Chloe laughed, popping her gum. You're such a sly fox. Then what? Then he'll be under suspicion. Once, twice. Everyone will think the senile old dishwasher accidentally pocketed the money. And when Patricia needs to put out the fire by firing someone, he'll be the first name on the list. Chloe bit her lip, her eyes gleaming. And then, hire someone new? Jason nodded. I've got a cousin looking for work. Good-looking, quick hands. He can replace Sam, I get a referral bonus, and we can split shifts easier. Win-win. David sat motionless. Each word felt like a cold dagger. There was no doubt now. They were orchestrating a scheme, and Sam was the sacrificial lamb. He glanced toward the kitchen. Sam was still hunched over a pile of dishes, his back bent under the dim yellow light. He had no idea that behind those faint smiles was a trap slowly tightening around him. David clenched his fists. Tomorrow he would take action. The truth had to be revealed, before kindness was snuffed out by deceit. That night, David didn't leave right after Oakwood Diner closed. Instead, he waited in his car, parked a few meters from the emergency exit behind the diner. The kitchen lights gradually turned off, staff members leaving one by one, laughing, scrolling on their phones, waving goodbye. Jason and Chloe were among them, still whispering something before bursting into laughter. But the last to leave, as expected, was Sam. Sam stepped out quietly, carrying a small cloth bag, his shirt still damp with dishwater. He didn't head toward the bus stop like the others, nor did he call a cab or get a ride. He crossed the parking lot, walking to a secluded corner behind the old storage lot next to the diner. David started his engine, keeping a safe distance with his headlights off. He followed the old pickup truck Sam had started, a 90s Ford, its paint peeling in large patches, groaning as if struggling to breathe its last. The truck didn't go far. It circled behind the commercial area, turned onto a small, muddy dirt road, and stopped beside an empty lot overgrown with weeds. David turned off his engine, hiding behind some roadside bushes. Before him stood a dilapidated trailer, a wartime mobile home, hastily set up with a few wooden stakes and plastic tarps. Sam stepped out of the truck, silently climbing the rotting steps, bracing himself to push open the stiff wooden door with his shoulder. A light flickered on inside, a single flickering ceiling bulb illuminating the tiny space David could see through the window. An old single bed, a few neatly placed photo frames, a thermos, and a small altar with a picture of an elderly woman, likely Sam's wife. David felt as if someone had punched him in the chest. He'd imagined Sam lived modestly, but he never expected this level of hardship and loneliness. No air conditioning, no kitchen, no hot water. Just a few essentials and a photo of the boy, his grandson, placed by the pillow. On the trailer's wall, David saw a calendar with a single day circled, the date of the boy's heart surgery. No one at Oakwood Diner knew that the man they looked down on each day slept in a freezing tin box, poured every penny into his grandson, and still arrived at the diner earliest, washed dishes the cleanest, and smiled the warmest. David sat there for a long time in the darkness. A mix of guilt and sorrow began to take shape in his heart. How could he, the founder of this entire diner chain, have let his employee live like this without knowing? And worse, Sam was becoming the victim of a despicable scheme. David gripped the steering wheel tightly. Tomorrow morning, he wouldn't just be an observer. He would be the one to turn the tables. Returning home that night after following Sam, David couldn't sleep. Images of the rotting trailer, the photo of Sam's late wife, the medical records of his grandson, and Sam's gaze during the video call with the boy kept swirling in his mind. It was time to do something. He couldn't let an honest man like Sam become a sacrificial pawn for someone else's greed. The next morning, David took the first step of his plan. He contacted a community support organization, connecting with Jessica, a single mother genuinely struggling financially, with a young child and a history of quietly begging for food. Jessica agreed to help, not for payment, but because 2 years ago, Sam had helped her when her child was sick and she couldn't afford lunch. She still remembered that kind face. That noon, Jessica and her young daughter Lily walked into Oakwood Diner. She wore an old patched-up shirt, tightly holding her daughter's hand, her eyes filled with hesitation. David was ready at his usual spot, the table near the cashier, his phone set to record and secretly film. Jessica ordered a simple meal, a bowl of soup and a sandwich for Lily. At checkout, she rummaged through her wallet slowly, pretending to panic, then whispered to Chloe that she didn't have enough money. Her voice trembled. I thought I had $20 on my card. I'm sorry. Can I wash dishes?" Chloe sneered. "We don't need more dishwashers, ma'am." She turned to Jason, deliberately loud. "Another one trying to eat for free." Sam, collecting dishes near the kitchen, heard and immediately approached, pulling out his wallet without hesitation. "I'll cover it. You can pay me back later if you like, or don't worry about it." Jessica looked at him with teary eyes, playing her role perfectly. "I'll pay you back. I promise." Sam just smiled, placing a hand on the shoulder of the little girl who was looking at her mom with anxious eyes. "Do you like going to school? You need to eat well to study well, right?" Chloe and Jason exchanged a glance, stepping back toward the counter. Their faces turned serious, and as if rehearsed, Jason spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "We're short on cash again. I just checked, and it was fine earlier. Now we're missing over $20. Chloe chimed in. "I saw Sam around here all day, and he has no reason to be near the register." David recorded everything. The trap was set, and Jason and Chloe had walked right into it. All that was left was tomorrow, to pull the curtain on the final act. The next morning, the air at Oakwood Diner felt heavier than usual. Early shift staff exchanged strange looks, whispering behind each other's backs. Everyone sensed something was about to happen, but no one dared say it aloud. Sam arrived on time as always, his shirt ironed flat, his old apron freshly washed. He still smiled and greeted everyone, still helped a new employee arrange cups, still cleared dirty tables before customers could call. No one spoke to him, but the way they avoided his gaze made him start to feel something was off. At 10:45 a.m., Patricia, the manager, a serious woman always busy with paperwork, suddenly stepped out of the office, her face tense, holding inventory records and the cashier's report. Behind her were Jason and Chloe, their expressions feigning concern, but their eyes gleaming with triumph. "Sam," Patricia called loudly, her voice trying to stay calm. "I need to speak with you for a moment." Sam wiped his hands, stepping forward, slightly surprised. "We found the cash register short by $22 this morning. This is the third time this week, and each time you were the one near the area." Sam flinched. I only helped a customer who didn't have enough money. I put money in the machine. I didn't take any out." Jason cut in. "No one saw you put money in, Sam. But someone saw you standing by the drawer for a long time." Chloe added, "Same thing yesterday, right after you talked to that customer who didn't pay enough." Patricia hesitated, her eyes wavering. "I don't want to believe it, but I have to follow policy. Multiple shortages with witnesses. I have no choice. Sam, I have to terminate your contract, effective immediately." A wave of silence swept through the diner. Sam stood still. No one spoke up for him. He looked at each face, people who'd eaten at tables he wiped, who'd been gently reminded by him, who'd had their dishes cleared by him. But now they all looked down. Sam didn't argue. He didn't beg. He quietly took off his apron, folded it neatly, and placed it on the counter. His aged eyes, clouded by time, now turned murky, not from anger, but from hurt. "I'm sorry if I disappointed you," he said softly. "I've never taken anything from anyone." Patricia couldn't meet his gaze. Jason stepped forward. "I'll escort you to get your things." Sam gently waved him off. "I can go myself." He left the diner without a clap, without a goodbye glance. But in the corner of the diner, David stood up, his eyes fixed on that hunched figure, the kind man who had just been knocked down by a blind, heartless system. And he knew, tomorrow justice would return, with the truth and with light. The next day, Oakwood Diner operated as usual, but a heavy atmosphere still lingered. No one mentioned Sam's firing, but everyone knew. Only Jason and Chloe seemed unusually cheerful, chatting behind the counter as if a major thorn had been removed. David walked in at exactly 10 a.m., still in his simple clothes, still wearing the old baseball cap. But today, he was no longer pretending. He stepped up to the counter, stood tall, took off his cap, and spoke in a resounding voice. "I am David Brooks, the founder of Oakwood Diner, and I've been here for the past 3 days, observing every action, every word spoken in my very first diner." The entire diner fell silent. Plates dropped onto tables uncollected. Patricia froze, her face pale. Jason and Chloe stood petrified, their smiles frozen on their lips. David continued, his voice not loud but firm. "For 3 days, I've seen a man over 70 wash hundreds of dishes, pay for strangers, protect younger staff, and do more than anyone else in a shift. His name is Sam Turner." He pulled out his phone, connecting it to the TV screen in the corner of the diner, the one used to display the digital menu. The screen lit up. A video from a hidden camera began to play. First image, Jason deliberately overcharging for a meal, then pocketing the extra cash. Next, Chloe accidentally voiding a receipt, glancing around nervously. Finally, the recorded conversation at the counter from the day before, every word crystal clear. "If he keeps putting money in the register like that, it's easier to blame him for any shortages. I've got a cousin looking for work." The diner erupted. Patricia's jaw dropped. A few staff gasped in shock. Customers, some of whom Sam had helped, grew angry, one standing up and pointing. "So you guys set him up to frame him?" Jason tried to argue. "No, we were just suspicious. We weren't sure." David cut him off, his eyes cold as steel. "Not sure? Or didn't think someone would record the evidence?" Chloe burst into tears. Jason turned pale. "Sam wasn't just an employee. He was the conscience you trampled on." David turned to Patricia. "You didn't verify the truth. You trusted 2 liars and fired an honest man. From now on, I'll personally manage this place again." At that moment, 2 police officers stepped into the diner, as arranged beforehand. David nodded. "These 2 need to be investigated for financial fraud and slandering an innocent person." Jason tried to run, but customers blocked him. Chloe collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. As they were escorted out, David took a deep breath and looked toward the entrance, as if waiting for someone to walk in, because the most deserving person still hadn't returned. The next morning, David arrived at the diner very early. No longer in disguise, he wore a simple white shirt, carrying a small box, his heart filled with deep gratitude. He had called Sam the previous night, but the man refused to return. "You've already helped me so much. I don't want to be a burden anymore. My grandson called. He asked me to come live with him. Maybe that's for the best." David didn't push. He only said one thing. "Your grandson believes you're a hero. Can you let the world know that too?" And now David stood at the entrance, hoping Sam would come. At 8:15 a.m., a soft noise sounded. The familiar old gray-green pickup truck slowly pulled up in front of the diner. Sam stepped out, slowly, quietly, his eyes still hesitant. David greeted him with a firm handshake, then invited him into the office. On the desk were a folder, a key, and the familiar photo of Sam's grandson, beautifully framed and placed with care. "Sam," David said, his voice warm, "I'm not just asking you back to apologize. I'm asking you back to honor you." Sam remained silent. "Starting today, you'll take on the role of special HR supervisor for the entire Oakwood Diner chain. Triple the salary, full health care for you and your grandson. Lighter shifts, no more dishwashing. But I need you here to pass on what you hold, dignity and compassion." Sam choked up. I've never been a manager." "You've done better than anyone. They just never recognized it." David smiled. He slid the key across to him. "This is the key to a small house, 3 blocks from here. It's yours. No payments, no conditions. Consider it for your 7 years of work without ever being late a single minute." Sam's hands trembled. But David wasn't done. "And I've contacted the hospital. Your grandson's heart surgery will be fully funded by Oakwood Diner's new fund. That fund is named after you, the Sam Turner Fund." Unable to hold back any longer, Sam broke into tears. The tears of 70 years of quiet living, endurance, and sacrifice finally had a place to fall. "You don't owe me anything," he whispered. David shook his head. "No, I owe you for keeping the soul of this place alive when I neglected it." As the two stepped out of the office, the entire staff and customers in the diner stood up, clapping to welcome Sam. No longer the silent dishwasher, but a hero recognized by the whole community. That day, Oakwood Diner wasn't just busier than usual. It was warmer. Every handshake, every hug, every thank you directed at Sam flowed like a current that had never been allowed to burst forth, now unleashed in a flood of emotion. People Sam had quietly helped came to the table, leaving envelopes, handwritten letters, or simply a grateful nod. A young boy from elementary school approached with a drawing, "Uncle Sam, the hero in my heart." David stood beside Sam, watching it all, and understood. A true hero doesn't need to stand on a pedestal, only in the hearts of others. At the end of the day, David stepped onto a small platform, looking at the staff and customers gathered around. "Today," he said, "we're not just welcoming someone back, we're relearning what Oakwood Diner once stood for: compassion. I used to think expanding the chain was success, but I forgot. True success is when everyone in this diner feels respected, heard, and able to live with the value they bring." He paused for a beat, then turned his gaze toward Sam, who was now sitting with his grandson, freshly recovered from a successful heart surgery, healthy and smiling. "Sam Turner taught me that lesson, not with a speech, not with a PowerPoint, but with his hands washing dishes every day, with the quiet money he pulled out to help others, and with the gentle gaze he kept even when hurt." The customers and staff erupted into applause, this time not just out of emotion, but from a restored faith. David took a deep breath, as if unburdening a heavy load. "Starting today, every employee at Oakwood Diner, from the kitchen, servers, cashiers, to dishwashers, will be paid a living wage, have full insurance, and access to an emergency fund for those in need. No one should have to sleep in a car while working for me. No one should have to hide their pain to keep their job." He pointed to a large sign newly hung behind the counter: "The Sam Turner Fund, helping with dignity." As the crowd began to clap again, Sam only bowed his head slightly. He didn't need the spotlight nor a title, because for him, living true to his heart was enough. Not everyone in a suit, with a title, standing on a stage, is a leader. Sometimes the hero is the one behind the dish sink, hands wrinkled from hot water, but a heart warm enough to keep this whole world from growing cold.